You're listening to the Empowered Equestrian Podcast. So, do you have the things you want out of life? In this episode, I chat with my friend Ashleigh Kendall. She's an amazing equestrian mental skills and performance coach and a dressage rider. And through her personal stories, she shares with you what it means to get what you want in life and how to get what you want in life. And it's one word: courage. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm Teal Shoup, and you're about to empower your equestrian life with this podcast. I'm an adult amateur rider, the CEO of global innovator Sterling Essentials, and am passionate about loving horses and being an equestrian on my own terms. If you're a wanting more rider but thinks our equestrian world can be better, is curious, is a little frustrated with the conventions of the equestrian industry, this podcast is for you. If you're looking for what empowers and builds you up as an equestrian rather than tears you down, this podcast is for you. Journey with me and my guests from all walks of equestrian life to hear the conversations, wisdom, and stories that will help you become an empowered equestrian. And when you're an empowered equestrian, you become present in even more meaningful ways to yourself, your horse, and your equestrian community. And then together, we will help our equestrian community thrive. I'm glad you're here. Okay, so hey everybody, welcome back for another great episode. This one I'm super excited about. It's on a topic that I think is near and dear to everyone's hearts. It's a very personal topic, obviously, and I'm excited to have Ashleigh Kendall here with me from all the way from New Zealand, on the other side of the world from me, basically in Oregon in the US. And she, I think, is just going to start off by telling us a little bit about herself and what all is going on in her life and her background in riding, because it's going to be super appropriate to what we chat about today.
Thank you for having me on. I'm so grateful that you asked me to come on. So that's really cool. And so I started riding actually on this little island called the Chatham Islands, which is 800 kilometers off Christchurch, New Zealand. There's a population of 700 people, so it's tiny little island.
And I just have to say, so it's not like New Zealand is a huge place and island to begin with. So when you say tiny, like that's probably not how I think about tiny. Like you mean tiny.
Yeah, I mean New Zealand's already tiny to you guys. So no, this is like really, really small.
Wow.
So I actually, like, my mum rode when she was a kid. So when we moved over there, I started riding. My first horse was this ex-race horse.
Oh my.
And I was probably about 7 or 8.
Wow.
I started like in a really, grassroots, I guess you could call it.
So how long was this horse off the track? Like pretty fresh off the track?
No.
Okay.
I'm not sure how old she would have been. She was pretty much just like a farm hag when she came off the track. So yeah, I'm not sure.
I was like, dang, your mom was like, whatever. Put her on a racehorse.
She was a really chill thoroughbred.
Cool.
It's crazy. I don't even know how old she was or anything. She just came from the farm, and I know that she had raced and she hadn't really done anything else. So it's kind of funny to think that was my first horse.
Yeah.
And then we moved back to, like, quote unquote New Zealand. Like, I mean, the Chatham Islands are New Zealand, but the mainland.
Sure.
And so it was actually kind of a hard journey, because I got when we came back, we lived in a town near Auckland, and I got this pony. My parents couldn't afford that much, so I think she was like an $800 pony, and she was, we had her on trial and she seemed great, as the story goes. And she wasn't that great.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And I ended up, I'm not actually sure how long I had her for, but I ended up having quite a hard accident of her.
Mm.
I actually like degloved all my gum off the jaw because I came
Whoa.
face first off her. And then I actually did get back riding her again, and then she bucked me off. I broke my elbow. So
Okay.
I was already like I would say, yeah, I was on the anxious side anyway,
Mm.
being a kid. And then, so getting like riding, like I loved horses, but it was quite a hard thing for me. And then I ended up with this really amazing pony, Misty. And she was just so cool. She started out like I was really afraid, and I was basically like back on the lead rein. I was like 10 at the time. And she was just so chill, so lovely, like went at my own pace. And then by the end of the season, I was full wire hunting her. And she was just so cool, and like the braver you got, the more hotter she would get. And she was actually quite crazy, like in the end, like I ended up show jumping her, doing everything on her.
Oh,
She was just
wow.
amazing. And then my sister ended up with her,
Mm.
and we had her until she died.
Yeah.
She was just such a 1 in a million pony. And then I moved on to hacks because I was quite a tall kid, so I did move on to hacks quite young.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, like we couldn't afford much, so I had to train my own horses. And it was I think I was around 15 or 16, I sort of started exploring dressage more, because the horse I had, he was really honest, he was so lovely, he was also off the track. But he was like really, really amazing. Not a great jumper, like he could jump small fences okay up to like 80 centimeters, but he wasn't, particularly brave. I think I jumped him up to a meter show jumping. And then I was like way more interested in dressage. And so my first dressage horse was an off the track thoroughbred that took me a year to get him to canter on the right lead.
Oh boy. Oh,
it was
boy.
the blind leading the blind. It really was. But just such an honest horse. And I got him through, competed him at elementary level, which we call like level 3. I think it's probably similar to your level 3.
Okay.
And then, had him like schooling the half passes and stuff. Didn't quite get the flying changes. And then I sold him to buy a younger horse, a yearling, which in the time of her like growing up, so I think I got her when she was 1.
Wow.
And by the time she got to 3, I was like, had decided to study at uni and stuff, so I sold her before I broke her in. And then took some time off, and then that takes me to like, I guess it's not like modern day, but my present day.
Sure, yeah.
Riding. So then I think I had 3, maybe 4 years off riding. And then I was sort of like playing with the idea of getting a horse, and not seriously, because we lived in an apartment in Auckland City.
Oh, okay.
And I was a flight attendant. So I was kind of like, really wanted a horse, but not really sure. And my boyfriend, who's now my husband, but he was my boyfriend at the time, he fully encouraged me to get a horse. And I was like, you don't want me to get a horse, because when I get a horse, it's going to be all about the horse. All our money is going to go on the horse. Everything I do is going to be about the horse. I'm like, I don't think you understand what getting a horse means.
Right. What a good man.
Yeah. And he still wanted me to buy a horse. And he actually, like, the horse I ended up with was Geo, who I still have.
Yeah.
And he was like, I had sort of a vague budget that I would have for the horse and a 4-wheel drive and a float, or a trailer, as I think you call them.
Yep.
So I spent my whole budget on the horse, and I was like, I'll worry about the other stuff later. I can hire a float, like,
Right?
all
We
good.
can always walk there. We can
Yeah,
walk where we
yeah.
need to go.
And I was like, look, I just fell in love with this horse, and so
Aw,
I was just like, look, if I can't compete for a year, who cares?
right.
And as it turned out, I didn't compete for a year. So yeah, so that I found Geo,
Right, right.
and he just turned 5, hadn't done a lot, pretty much had been broken in, had done some basic schooling, I would
Mhm.
call it. Like, he was just very wobbly, as a young horse is.
Yeah,
Um, and of course, like, when I went and tried him, I hadn't been riding for such a long time. Well, yeah, like, I mean, I
yeah.
guess it's not that long, but
But
it's long enough.
yeah, totally. Like your sea legs start to go pretty fast. It's not really fair.
Yeah,
It takes so much work to get them good. And then they're like, oh, nope, we're on vacation.
you really don't understand that until you've
Hmm.
experienced it.
Sure.
So yeah, so I went and tried him, and like the guy that had him rode him, and I loved him.
Mhm.
And I was like, look, I'm gonna get on him, and like the lady that was there, she's like, look, if you don't canter, don't worry about it. You can always like catch up as you
Mhm.
go with him. And like I fully intended to like have help and stuff. So um and like I had ridden to a reasonably high level before I took my break, because I'd worked for another dressage rider, and I'd ridden her horses. So I'd ridden
Yeah.
um, a couple of horses that were around advanced level. So I had like, I did know a little bit. And yeah, so I hopped on him. Anyway, I loved him, ended up cantering. He was awesome. That was all good. Bought him. And then 3 months after I bought him, he just had a really young horse moment. Like, he's never done it again, but he spooked,
Mm.
and then he started bucking. And I fell off and broke
Oh,
my pelvis. So I had to take 3 months off.
wow.
I had to do a lot of like bed rest in the
Mm.
start. And it really wasn't great, because I already, like, I still was quite nervous anyway. Or
Sure.
maybe nervous is not the right word, but I did have anxiety about stuff going wrong.
Yeah.
And it was left over from when I was a kid, and
Hmm.
then I had that bad accident as a kid. So blah blah blah, you know what it's like.
Yep.
And so yeah, so I had to get, and he was like a big moving, very athletic young
Hmm.
horse. So while I was out, I had someone else riding him, which was really good.
Mm, yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and then yeah, I got back on him. In the meantime, I'd moved from Auckland to the Waikato, where I
Hmm.
am still now. And like down here we have a lot of dairy farming. It's a real sort of farming district. And so, of course, the grass is really fresh,
Mm.
fertile, like it's good growing country. And so, compared to Auckland, where the horses are basically kept on dirt.
Okay.
And so, I was a little bit worried, because I moved him down to a farm, and obviously there's grass, and
Right.
we do have a real problem with horses being grass affected
Sure.
in New Zealand. And he was actually cool, but of course I had to like ride him more on the farm, and a little bit of arena work. Like, I still schooled him and stuff, but
Yeah.
I was just really committed to like him learning how to be a horse.
Hmm.
And I spent a lot of time, probably I'd say about a year's worth of like groundwork focused work, as well as schooling and hacking and stuff. Um, and it really, like, when I got back on him, it was a real time for me when I had to decide, I'm going to push through my confidence issues, or it's just going to get worse and worse. And like, reflecting back, it would have been a good time if I had gone and, spoken to a
Hmm.
psychologist or someone like that. And it didn't really cross my mind, but if I had my time again, that's what I would have done. But
Right.
I kind of just had to work through it myself, and I'd get on him and I'd be really scared. And, so I'd pretty much cry every day actually. And it was a really hard time. It was like, I felt really depressed about it. I felt anxious. I felt everything. And I just had to set myself little challenges, like in this paddock, if all I do is trot 2 steps, that's great. So I just set little goals. I don't think there was any time I only trotted 2 steps, because once I started, I was like, oh, that's great, I'm just gonna go. And I had, like, my sister really supported me. She rode him a couple of times, cantered him up the hills, and I could see like he wasn't gonna do anything. And so I just kind of built confidence, like the really, really small steps every day. But it really taught me a lot about myself, a lot about, like, I wasn't actually afraid of the horse, but I was afraid that I couldn't handle what the horse would do if he did something, because he was still, like, he didn't buck again, but he was still unpredictable. Like, he would get a fright and he'd leap leap that way, or he'd like spin and stuff like that. So it was a real catalyst for change for me.
Amazing.
And I'm really grateful that I had that experience, because I think without it, of course, I just planned that I'd get this horse and I'd school him and I'd go and do shows and it would be amazing and I'd win a lot. and like, it didn't come. Like, we did get some good wins and stuff, but it was after I had worked through all this other stuff. Because I don't think that I actually got him to a show. It would have been a full year after I got him. So that's, and then I ended up with Ruby, who I got as a 2-year-old. She's now rising 7. So she's 7 at the end of the year. And then I got some other young horses. So I've got Jet, who is by the same sire as Ruby. I got him because I loved Ruby so much. I was like, I have to have
family.
yeah. And like, the breeder that bred them both, they were going to keep Jet, and I was like, when I saw him, I was really annoyed, because I thought, this is the horse that's going to beat my horse. So I don't want anyone else to have this horse.
You're just trying to control the market. I see how it is. Oh my gosh, you're taking out the competition.
I was like, this is a horse I really want. And then, as it turned out, like, their daughter got more, like, really seriously into show jumping, and they wanted to buy more quality show jumping horses. So they were like, okay, we'll sell them so they can fund their show jumpers. So the minute that she said that she'd sell him, I was like, I'll come over right now. So but I mean, he hasn't been easy either. Like, he had a pretty good buck in him. So I actually sent him back to the breaker 4 times, because I'd get him back and I'd be like, I'm not quite, because I did get bucked off him as well, but I was like, I'm not quite confident, take him back for another month. Then he injured he had a really bad paddock accident, and he needed surgery to fix his leg. And that was, a good few months off. So again, like, I sent him back to the breaker to bring him back into work, and he was meant to be there for a month, and he was there for 2. Even the breaker was like, he is very spicy. Like,
I feel like there's a theme here. You've definitely had, a lot of challenging situations and challenging horses, even if they didn't maybe like appear that way at first. I think a lot of riders can really relate to this, because even your older horses, the tried and true, the been there, done that, they still have their moments, and things happen. Like, my guy who I most recently had, I had a crash landing off of him on doing, I was doing, no stirrup November, practicing jumping with him, and he got excited and was bucking after the jump, and I made it through 4 of the 6 bucks he did, and off I came on the 4th, and I wound up, pulling some muscles and cracking a rib, So it's like, even the tried and true guys, like, there's so much like anxiety and confidence issues and stories we tell ourselves as riders. And I'm just like listening to everything you're saying. I'm like, wow. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
Yeah, and I think it's something that we're talking about more now, but
Mm-hmm.
I know like when I was a kid and I had that first really bad accident, and there were falls in between, of course,
Mm-hmm.
like everyone
Yeah.
falls off. Um, and like I had a few broken bones, but nothing like that serious. And
Mm-hmm.
um, but as a kid, people didn't like this was 20 years ago. So people weren't so open about coaching each other through those confidence issues. And it was like I could see all my friends going and jumping and galloping up hills and having fun. And I just felt
Mm-hmm.
really like there was something wrong with me
Oh.
because
Mm.
I couldn't get myself to do that. I just mentally couldn't do it. And it was really, really hard because it was like, I love this sport. I love these horses and everyone else is doing all these things. What's wrong with me? Why can't I? And there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like in New Zealand, even now, dressage is still really small, especially when you compare it to eventing and show jumping.
Okay.
Like a big show for us is around 200, 250 horses.
Okay.
So it's not, and I mean, that's partly because each test takes its time. So there's only so
Sure.
many you can fit in a day. But, through at the lower levels, there'll be 30 to 40 in a class in a big show.
Mm.
But at the higher levels, we have, if we get 6 Grand Prix horses,
Okay.
that's quite a lot.
Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, not a lot, but what you'd expect. If we had
Sure.
8 in a class, that would be heaps. So you can see, like, in a pre-St. George class, even if we have like 15 to 20 riders, that's a lot. So as a kid wanting to do dressage, it just wasn't something that people did.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was into jumping. Now there are a few more kids out there, and there's pony classes and
Sure.
it's more supported for kids. But I think like we just didn't talk about it, and so of course like being an adult and I'd growing up with that whole like we didn't talk about it kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we don't share our experiences so much with other people. We don't talk about our failures. And I think part of it's we're probably a little bit embarrassed about it.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is that we always want to look like we're winning.
Sure.
And that's definitely, I think, social media. Like we've always wanted to share our highlights, but I really like in the last like maybe 2 or 3 years, people have been a little bit more honest about actually what it takes to get through. Even just as a really average rider, even
Yeah.
as a happy hacker, you're still going to
Mm-hmm.
have terrifying experiences.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just
There's moments and I mean it's riding is it takes a fair amount of not just physical courage but mental and emotional courage
yeah.
too. I mean, and with all of your experiences, like did you feel did it just feel like a really natural pull to then just move into the mental and performance coaching? Like did it feel pretty
Yeah.
easy since you've already like lived this, like you can speak to it so naturally?
Yeah, I think it was actually not conscious for
Mm,
me. So I think three, I'm just trying to think. I think it was about 3 years ago. We had just moved to our property that we live at now, so it was our first home, and we've got 10 acres of land, which
mm,
is 4 and a bit hectares.
yeah.
Um, and so we'd been here about 6 months, and I was experiencing a really tough time with being bullied by some other riders.
Mm,
Um, and it was a small group. It was 3 of them, and they're much older than me, and they should know better. But they've
sure.
obviously got their insecurities, and they felt like I was a target for them.
Right.
Um, and so it was really hard because I felt really down about it, and I felt really alone. And I had been actually going to therapy for, I'd say, about a year, maybe. maybe less, maybe a bit less, I'm not sure. But I was starting to sort of walk in my own truth a little bit more about some stuff that had happened in my past. And I was starting to own it. I was starting to walk in that path of courage is what I would say it is. And so I ended up just saying, like, and I'd been through some really dark times prior to this, is kind of just coming out of it. And I had been in a place where I was like trying to figure out if life was actually worth it. And so I, things were getting a little bit better, but I definitely had some pretty dark months before that. And I just thought, it made me really angry, because I thought, if these people had done this a couple of months before, and of course no one on the outside knew what I was going through, maybe just a very few people, but I'm like, because I try to always act like I'm positive and I'm happy, and I don't want anyone to think that anything's wrong, and that's always been my defense. And so I just felt really angry at that point, because I was like, you don't know what someone's going through in their personal life or internally. And a lot of people are really private about their mental health struggles and stuff. And it is becoming more openly talked about. But even 3 years ago, it wasn't talked about. And so I ended up actually just writing a post on my personal page. And I was like, I can't like remember the specifics, but the gist of it was just like, you don't know what someone's going through. Like, this is what I've been battling for the last however long, I don't even know right now. But and these people have been saying these things about me that are untrue. And it's, you just have to be so careful. And why are we bullying each other? It's just ridiculous. And so that's kind of where it started for me. I got a lot of support from that. I got a lot of people that were like quite shocked, because they just didn't know that I'd been through depression and anxiety on the level that I had been. So I guess it was natural from the point that it kind of just evolved from there. And then at the end of that year, I ended up making my page on Facebook, Dreamtime Dressage. And then I blogged a lot more about stuff like that. And I blogged a lot more then than I do now. So I guess in some ways you could say it was natural, because I gathered a lot of support from people, and in turn I offered a lot of support. And it wasn't one-on-one support, but it was just putting out my story and things that were helping me at the time, and just things that I'd been through. And I think that I started realizing I wasn't alone, because I suddenly had all these people coming out of the woodwork that were saying, oh my God, like, I can really relate to what you're saying. You're inspiring me just because people don't talk about this. And now you're giving me the courage to actually address some of my own things. And it was a kind of, I was putting it out there to own my story, because I thought, well, if I own it, no one else can use that against me, because I put it out there.
Oh wow,
kind
that's
of
so
thing.
powerful.
So I was doing it for that reason, like for my own, if you want to call it selfish, it was for myself. But then I realized, oh my God, like, there's all these other people coming on now, and they're relating to this, which is awesome. It's sad, but it's actually really awesome too, because we've got that sort of collective responsibility to each other. So it kind of, it evolved. It was, I guess, natural, because I do speak from personal experience, as well as like now I've got some education behind me. Back that up. But like, I mean, and I still speak to my psychologist. I think I've been seeing her for maybe 4 years now. And I go to her like every 2 or 3 weeks, and she's a sports psychologist. So while she helped me through my therapy, my clinical stuff, we now just work on sport mainly. And like, so that helps me, but I also go in there sometimes and I'm just like, blah, 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 blah.
Like, but you got it. Yeah. Like, it's amazing though, to have that outlet, right? I mean, and I think that's so cool what you're saying about, we have to do these things just for us also. It's personal. And because there's no way we can serve and help someone else unless we take care of what's with us and within. And you were saying, oh, maybe it's selfish, but I would flip it on its head even and say, isn't it selfish to keep it in? Because when you put it out there, that's when we get to help the world, right? That's when other riders see and say, oh yeah, like one of the things one of my coaches has told me is, remember, Teal, go serve, because what is most personal is most general. Like, really, we're all going through the same stuff in various degrees. So just like be out there. And I mean, that's amazing. You know, like you stepped out and shared in a time when, even more than now, when there's so much judgment in the world, you know, and it's just stepping up and being courageous again. And I mean, like it started this now entire other avenue for you, this other part of your journey, and you're helping so many riders. I mean, how cool is this?
Yeah, it is cool. It is cool. And like sometimes I don't see that so much because a lot of, you know, what I put out there is in the form of like Facebook or social media posts. So, which I actually really like. I do like the putting the message out there, and I don't necessarily have to receive anything back from people, because I know that even if, you know, no one says, oh, I can relate to that, I know that there are people that are out there relating to it, and sometimes they're not in a position where they can give that feedback back to you, but it's really helping them. But like I had a client the other day say to me, you know, I'm doing this and that with my job, and she's feeling like her life is in a lot of chaos, and she's a really high up person in a really successful company, and she said, like, I just don't feel that I'm serving for other people. I don't feel like I'm giving back to my community. And I said, well, we all are in some way. I mean, you just doing this work on yourself is impacting other people. Like, you can't, my Nana, for example, who, you know, she has a little house on my parents' property, and we go and visit her, and mum sees her every day and stuff, but she doesn't actually go out there, and she's not volunteering in the community or anything like that. Like, she's a Nana. And I said to my client, I said, you know, my Nana, who isn't like on the face of it doing much, she's still giving a lot back to my family just by being there and just by being her. So anytime that you're doing work on yourself and the interactions that you have with other people is going to positively influence the community. And it might not be like, you know, some people are out there, they are giving to charity, they are volunteering their time, and that's awesome. But not everyone can do that. But you can positively influence society by being a good person and working through your own battles. And then when you have the courage and you have the capacity to do so, like sharing with others, I think that you can't underestimate how important that is.
Totally. Yeah, and I was thinking about that too with like even riders. Like, okay, I'm an amateur. A lot of you listening at home, you're amateurs, some of you pros, some of you trainers, some of you very, very just casual riders, which are all awesome, amazing things. But something I like to talk about is like riders are leaders in our community as well, and setting up that courageous example for each other. And to me, like, we're all serving each other by being a part of this community. And it's not just like, okay, we were brave, we got on the horse, we did the thing, we competed, we went over a jump, we were on an 18-hand ball of fire around the dressage court, whatever it is. Like, all of that is so amazing and intense. But I think there's this whole other layer of it with the courage it takes to even show up, I think, like at the barn in a certain way in order to bring in positivity and the right environment and the right culture and the lack of judgment and acceptance, or even like to push against, you know, some of the things that maybe are happening in our industry. I mean, I don't know how common it is like in New Zealand if it's a thing, but like soaring in the US, like stuff like that, where like you have to push against the grain and stand up and say, nope, we're doing new things, we're changing. Like that's not physical courage, that's something else. And to me, that's more important, where riders need to show up and live with courage from in the equestrian community, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, like the whole horse welfare thing to me is really important. Like I think I even said to my trainer yesterday, like when I was riding Ruby, like, I mean, and you can apply this to any of the horses, like, my ultimate dream is to ride at Grand Prix. And one day, if I can represent my country doing that, then that is actually a huge cherry on top of an amazing cake. But, like I said, we don't know if they're going to do it. But I said to Christine, like, if we get Ruby to advanced or pre-St. George, like she should do that easy. Like it's not going to be a huge push for her to do that. But if we get her through there, even if we get her to Inter 2, and we think, okay, like we could push her to Grand Prix, but if this is not going to be the right thing for her, if it's going to break her mentally or physically, then that's not something I want to do. I don't want to get to Grand Prix at all costs. Like I don't want to break my horse to do it. Because they just mean too much to me. And I mean, if I'm 80 and I've never done it because I didn't have a horse that physically could do it or mentally could do it, I'm still going to be happy with that. If I get to 80 and I did it a few times on different horses and I did get to my ultimate dream of representing my country, well, then that's awesome as well. But it's not the whole thing for me. Like I think, and you talk about even breeding and stuff. It's like I look at breeding as in I'm trying to find good bloodlines that will suit me as a rider and suit the horses that I've got to breed.
Right.
But it's not about breed for me. Like if a cart horse was the horse that was going to take me to Grand Prix, I'd breed that. Like, you know what I mean? Like
signed up.
Like I'm not like, oh, I have to have a warm blood or oh, it has to be this or that. It's actually just about trying to find a horse that's going to be sound in mind and body. But like I agree with you. Like even with Geo, like when I spent so much time doing groundwork, like people at dressage were laughing at me for doing that. And I thought, well, my horse is insane. He's got and like I've got to do this if I'm going to produce him to do anything.
Right.
That's fairly obvious to me. But also, if I don't do this, I'm going to end up with an absolute nutcase of a horse that you probably can't do anything with. And that's not what I want for my horse. Like I want him to be able to lead a life that he feels good about as well. Right. So they don't have any control of their lives. Like that's what's so crazy. Like we can get up in the morning and say we're doing this or that, or we don't like our job anymore, we're going to quit. Yeah. They don't get to actually, like they can tell us that in so many ways, but we have to be open to listening to them. Yep. So, like, I mean, we don't have soaring and stuff in New Zealand. I mean, I definitely see it, I've known about it for a long time. Sure. Via the internet, but even on a very small level, like it's not outwardly, abusive. You still have to, that's my dog wiggling there.
Say the puppy's getting in on the action here.
You still have to, be responsible for your horse and the welfare of it. And if they need a new job, they need a new job, right. And that's okay. Like it might break our hearts a little bit, but it's going to break, like I know for me, it's going to break me even more if I haven't looked after my horse and I've broken it or I've done something to it. And like I haven't been responsible to that horse. So you do have to act with courage, like even from that point of view. Even sometimes just going against your own thoughts is courage. Like, I know that even, I've seen riders that have had horses and they've been pushing for a huge event. Then their horse has had colic or it's had a lameness issue. And I know that it must be so hard to say, okay, I'm going to pull out of the running for the Olympics or WEG or whatever. But they should have, they should have done that. And instead they pushed on. And they didn't end up getting there anyway, but there was still expense to the horse. Like, it should, like, things like that shouldn't happen. And so even that is acting out of courage. I think that it's quite cowardly to keep pushing on when the horse isn't right in some way. And even if it costs you your dream for that year, that's not for you at that time in your life. So you have to have the courage to say, I'm not going to keep pushing my horse. I'm going to pull out of whatever it is that you're doing, and I'm going to reassess, and I'm going to start again if I have to. Or if I miss out, I miss out, like the Olympics or WEG or Horse of the Year or Nationals or whatever it is that you're doing, it shouldn't be ahead of your horse. So sometimes courage is just battling yourself as well. Like,
I think that's a really good point. That's a really good point, because we can be I hate the expression, our own worst enemy, but like we can, our subconscious mind and our conscious mind can be out having chit chats with each other about what they want to do. And then when our intuition or what you feel in your gut gets involved, and it can become a little messy. It can be a little hard to hear or feel or really know what your, like, deep down, what's the value here? What's the goal? What's really, really, truly important to me? And the external world can look really shiny, and you just keep going for it when you say, act with courage, and it's not going backwards. I think that's the thing of it. Is like sometimes, like, you just keep pushing because you're on that path. You feel like you're committed, and the courageous thing to do is say, okay, time out. But sometimes that feels maybe hard to do, because it can seem like, what's the story you're going to tell yourself about it? Oh, well, I was a quitter, or this means I failed, or I lost, or now I'm going backwards, or like all these BS stories that we dump on ourselves, and now we feel bad. I'm like, no, like, you should feel, how do we chat with ourselves to feel good then about that choice when you're deviating from this huge path and dream,
and I think that's where we get really stuck. We want to think of it as black and white, and actually most of our life is gray. Like, you can feel good about that you made a good decision for your horse, and also be disappointed that you missed out on whatever it was that you missed out. Like, it doesn't have to be black or white. It can actually just be gray, like, and it can be bittersweet. And I think, we're all going to experience that as riders if we do this long enough, especially, I'm talking from a competitive point of view. But I'm sure there's times that, people that hack around on trails and stuff, they're going to miss out on a big ride or something because their horse is lame.
Oh, yeah.
Or their horse isn't right. So, I mean, you can apply it to anything, and you can
every
apply
level.
it to life. And it's not, and I mean, that's something I've struggled with too. I've often in life wanted things to be black and white. But it's been able to sit with discomfort, have tolerance for it, that, this hasn't turned out what I wanted it to be. And that's going to happen most of the time when we're pushing for something that it's not going to turn out how you wanted it to be. And that can even be a score in dressage. It can be, your show jumping around. It can be anything. It's going to be very rare that you go out there and you actually just nail it, and then the judge agrees with you. And the weather was perfect, and the footing was perfect, and everything, the stars just aligned.
And the angels sang.
It doesn't happen that often. So when it does happen, we've got to cherish those moments, and we've got to really bottle them and nurture them. And when that doesn't happen, or we've gone out, and I don't like to use the word fail, but we failed in some way. It might not even be that you got a bad score. It could be that your horse spooked at something. That could be the end of the world for you. But, we've got to go out and fail, and we've got to increase our tolerance for that discomfort, or we're not going to grow. And I think that is part of sitting in the gray area too. And a lot of the decisions we're going to have to make throughout our careers are not going to be easy ones.
Very true. Very true.
It's just sitting with that and being okay with it, and just saying life's not perfect, and like, I'm here for the whole life experience. So to me, the whole life experience is the ups and the downs. And I'm not saying I'm going to like the downs, like I'm probably going to hate it, but it's part of the life experience.
Right? It passes through. It's just,
yeah.
But you have to know the downs a little bit to also see the ups. Like there's a difference here. There's change, there's variance.
Yeah.
And then you appreciate the other even more.
And those failings that you have, like I remember when I was really afraid of competing, and you know, Geo was at level 5, so advanced medium by then, and I was just making any excuse that I couldn't compete. Any reason that I couldn't compete, I was happy to not compete. Like I was so happy to enter shows, and I'd be like, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to work myself up to it. I'm going to train hard, la-di-da-di-da. And then I get to it and I'd be like, oh, I can't do it for this reason, or I can't do it for that reason.
Right.
And in the end, like that's when I started working with my sports psychologist. And she said to me, you actually just need to go out there. And no matter what, you need to ride through the test, the whole test. You can't retire. You need to get down your center line and do it. And I literally went out every weekend for, I don't know how long, ages. It was months and months. I went out every weekend, rain, hail, or shine, because I started this in the winter. So there's a lot of photos of me riding in the pouring rain at a show. And I went and did it. And, you know, like actually I learned to almost love failing. I learned to just go out there, and every weekend it made me better for the next weekend, because, you know, Geo he is a little bit unreliable. He does let me down a little bit. And saying that, I let him down a lot too. So it's a little bit of both of us letting each other down, and my inexperience too. And you know, I had a trainer at the time that encouraged me to push him through the levels too fast. If I could go back, and I know we all say this, but if I could go back and start any horse again, it would be that horse. And I think I'm always going to say that, because I think, you know, as difficult as he has been in many ways, and he would have been difficult for any rider, you know, he does need a rider with a lot of feel and a lot of sympathetic riding in many ways, but you still have to, you know, make him do it as well. Like, so he wasn't an easy horse, I'm not going to pretend that, but if I could go back and start again, oh my god, there would be so many things I'd do differently. And like poor Geo, like he has been with me through my biggest learning. I think I'm always like, we're always going to learn, but he is probably the one that I've learned the most on. And, you know, our first horses are probably always going to be like that. But, you know, like just like I spent a long time trying to find a trainer that suited us. I would never push a horse through the levels as quickly as I did with him again. You know, like there's just a lot of holes in the training because of that. But in saying that, like I learned a lot. I learned that it's okay to go out and get your ass kicked, and then you can get back up, and you've got more fire for the next time, and you learn, like, you know, okay, I didn't ride the test well, and my marks reflected that. I'm still learning that now. I should have learned by now, but I'm still learning that. And so I think, you know, that's where having the courage to push yourself into that growth zone where actually, you might not win on the day, and that's okay. Like, it's not about the day, it's about the journey. Is the trajectory going upwards, or are you just searching for shows that you can win at? And it's like, even someone said to me the other day, and I don't want this to come across in the wrong way, but, you know, they were talking about all the rugs that they won. And I said, I wish I had that problem. Like, I have never won a rug. And she goes, and this is a girl that's ridden at really low level. And that's fine. Like, that's fine. If that's what you want to do, I'm not judging you for that. But, you know, I've been riding at a level where I show up, and in my class are all the Grand Prix riders on the young horses, and then there's me. And so I'm always just stoked if I can finish anywhere near them. And and if I get a ribbon, I get a ribbon. Like, that's so cool.
Sure.
It's so hard to win a rug and what I'm doing. And she said to me, oh, I never won rugs anyway until I found my forte. But like, if you keep trying, you'll get there. And I just thought, but to me, winning a rug doing that is not winning. Mm-hmm. So to me, winning, even if I end up 10th in a really competitive class in dressage, that's a win. Right. So it doesn't have to be about the ribbon. It doesn't have to be about the title. Your wins could be literally anything. But to me, it's like the progression on an ever long lasting journey. We see Olympians in our sport that are in their 60s. So it's like, I'm thinking, oh, well, I've got 30 more years to go.
Lots of time.
So it's like, I've got plenty of time to do a lot of hard work before then. But, it's like, to get to that point, you have to fail a little bit. And that's just how it's going to be,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the showing up part of it. I think, like, as you were mentioning, it was, and like with Gio, it was like, he caused you to show up in a different way. Like, if it had been a totally easier ride, you wouldn't have gone through these exercises and steps and experiences that have helped form you into what you are today. And I think, like you were talking about before, the steps you take to build even the habits to start to show up a little more with purpose and a little more with courage. You said, I forget your exact words, but you're like, it's the baby steps, right? It's you go and you trot 2 steps, and that's the win, and I love that. Cause like, I mean, I'm the same way. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this huge thing. I'm going to accomplish this huge thing. And oh, great. It's not working out so well. So now I'm going to beat myself up and I'm going to chicken out and I'm going to avoid it because I don't want the pain. And I'm like, well, that's not the bold attitude. That's not the courageous way of being. And how unfulfilled then is my life going to be because I've hid in this place, right? And
and that's the thing. Like, that's the thing about avoidance, is that it feels good at the time because we have avoided the thing that was making us anxious. So we feel good about it at the time. So we actually get that hit of dopamine that we get from avoiding something. And so that's what it was like for me, like with the entering shows and not going. Every time I scratched, I felt this wave of relief, and it was like a hit of dopamine. Because I didn't have to do what I didn't want to do. But the problem with avoidance is that you get to a point where your world is so small because it's systematically just over time shrunk every part of you until you're not doing anything anymore. And so that's where we do have to be really careful that we are living from that place of courage, and we're always going to have times where we avoid the thing we don't want to do. And then we should think, oh, that's not living with courage, that's not what I'm about. Okay, I'm not going to do that again next time. Not beat ourselves up about it, but just think, okay, I'm learning from that. And it's the same, like, when we talk about building courage, like, I think that as riders, like, we tend to focus on what went wrong a lot more than what went well. And so I think that some people think I'm crazy, and like, I probably am.
Crazy is good. Crazy is what shakes things up.
And I kind of think, like, that's a superpower in its own way. But, I think some people think I'm crazy because, like, I'll go into something, and even if it's not good, I'll come out and I'll be like, this was good, this was good, this was good. I'm always trying to fire towards that positive way of thinking. Before I look at anything that went wrong, I look at what went right. And so I do that because I am training my brain to fire towards the positive things. And I'm also holding on to those things that went well. So I have confidence. Like, I'm building confidence all the time to try again. And then the things that didn't go wrong, I don't look at, like, I used to beat myself up about it. Now I just go, I just need to work harder, and I need to make sure I'm out in that arena every day, dotting my I's and crossing my T's. And like, working harder is not thrashing yourself to the point that you're burnt out. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that, but it's like, okay, I just need to be a little bit more diligent about my way of training,
Mm-hmm.
and I need to reset my mindset a little bit here. So it's not, then it doesn't become this negative thing. It's just part
Yeah.
of the journey, like
Right.
we didn't start out perfect.
No.
We don't come with a manual. We actually have to learn about what makes us tick as people.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have to develop our minds a little bit as
Yeah.
well. And so I just think of it as this ever evolving stage of growth. And there's going to be a lot of ups and downs that come with that. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, that's fine, like
Yeah.
that's okay.
Totally
That's fine.
okay. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's that total journey, and I think the thing about it is too is that we're not cruising along in this community by ourselves. Like, we're not operating in a vacuum. And I think
Yeah.
that's what can be so one, liberating for riders, and two, also just like doubling up on the power of it, because fellow riders can help each other to
Yeah.
bring up that confidence, to get out there and show up,
Yeah.
in all the ways, not just in
Yeah.
competition, but in all the ways that our community sees, to support each other. I mean, I think that's where it's at. And that's why I talk, again, about like riders as leaders, is that we're leaders to each other as much
Yeah.
as to ourselves.
Yeah, and I think it's really easy to get competitive with others. And like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can reflect on a time where I was competing in the same level with a friend. And, like, I think that if you looked at the results, she probably beat me more, but we were both like, we were on par with each other. And I remember, like, even though she still is like such a great friend to me, I remember being like competitive against her in my mind, and it actually, like, it took up so much space that I didn't even do my job properly when I was in the ring. But I think, like, no one is going to be at the top all the time. Like, we all have our time in the sun. And so it's not about, trying to beat others. It should just be about improving and focusing on your own game. Row your own boat, go out there and be friendly with your peers and stuff, and encourage each other. And like, helping someone else up is not going to change anything about yourself. So it's not like in a negative way. I mean, like, it's not, if you help someone with their warm up, that's not going to reflect poorly on you. It's not going to make them beat you. If they beat you, they beat you. You'll beat them one other time. But, it's not. Yeah, like, we've got to be a little bit more positive about the way that we think about these things.
For sure. And it's something I could wax on about for quite a while, but also just this idea of care, concern, and giving in our equestrian community. And by pulling someone down, you're only pulling yourself down. By lifting someone up, you're lifting yourself up and them and your entire community. So which is better, right? And then it's the reciprocity of just your energy in a good way, a supportive way going out. That's going to come back to you from somewhere, like you didn't just drain yourself dry. Like, I don't know if people, they get worried about that with, if I help someone else, then I just gave them an advantage and now I'm screwed. I'm like, no, that's not the place to work from.
And also, helping someone else, you're not losing anything. It's not like you're giving away something. You're just helping someone else. That's all it is. And like, I also think, like, you play small, you stay small. So if you want to go out and win lots of ribbons, I mean, by all means, go and do that. Go to small shows.
If that's what floats your boat, go for it.
Yeah, if that's what you want, if you want a pretty wall, cool. I'm all for that. But I also think, like, it's nice to look at a start list and go, okay, I've got a really good shot here that I can do well. But it's also really inspiring to look at a start list and go, oh my God, there are so many good riders and horses in this class. I'm really going to have to bring it.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like goosebumps even now talking about it, because you know, you don't want to be the strongest person in the room.
Yeah.
I always think like you want to be hustling hard to work up to their level. If you're against a whole lot of people that are equal or maybe not as skilled as you, how are you gonna, you're not gonna be inspired to work hard, you're just gonna cruise through it and win. But if you're actually like in a class that's really strong and you know that you're gonna have to bring it if you're even gonna get close to them, you're gonna be out there training hard at home, you're gonna be doing everything that you need to be doing. You're not going to be out there chilling,
Yeah.
you know, resting on your laurels and bringing home a ribbon. So, I mean, we all have our different goals. Some people do want the easy class, but I think if you want to grow and you want to be the best that you can be, and you want to find out where your potential really is, then you need to be putting yourself in situations where you're not going to win all the time.
Right.
And
get out of that comfort zone. That's where the growth is. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think the more we have these conversations, I think the more we're going to see some of these shifts, I think, with our fellow riders, and just a little bit of evolving with our community. And just, I think how very powerful that's going to be. And so, I mean, what's the next thing coming for you then too? I mean, you got any exciting things planned? I mean, I know you're now in the winter, so it can be a little, you know, a little chill, but.
So we're about, our season doesn't start till October. So it's actually not that far away.
Golly,
I just
guess not.
like, I know it feels like it is because I still think of it as being the start of the year, but it's not. So like last week I gave my horses a week off. I'll probably give them another week off end of August, just, you know, freshen all of us up for the season. I'm really that person that will like go hard in winter and then put out at the start of the season. So this year I'm definitely not going to do that. But like for me, I've got, you know, I've got Geo at home. I have no plans to compete him. I'm just really enjoying just mastering my skills. And he's an awesome horse. He knows all the tricks. So I'm really, really lucky that I get to be able to ride something that's a little older and more established. But you know, he's tricky to compete, and I've got young horses that I really need to focus my resources and my time on, and like I can only take 2 to a show, so it's not going to be him. So that's just the reality of it. And also I think, you know, it winds me up a little bit. I still have not been able to get my head around competing him. Like I've competed him a lot, and like, you know, we won a lot at those small shows that I was talking about. We did okay at some of the bigger ones too, but you know, I kind of think it's a new start for me with my younger horses. So I have to be sensible. I have to focus on them. But, you know, I take Geo to lessons and stuff. He's awesome. I can train on him at home. I can practice tests. So I'm really, really lucky to have that training ground. And then like with Ruby, so she was like a late foal. So she's like 6.5 now. I've just started her at medium level. Well, I mean, I haven't started her. I've done a Dressage New Zealand squad day where I rode her at medium level and had the judges judge her. So we've done a medium test. So yeah, kind of.
It's
and
a
that
win.
Was really, exactly. Like it was really good. Like she's still so young. So yeah, she'll come out, and I'll probably take her and Jet to some spring shows just to get them in the groove of things.
Sure.
And then we'll have our first Premier League in October. I'll take them both. Jet, he is rising 6 this year. He is, you know, he's only done one show. He only went out in April. He was really good. But the thing with him is that I'm not worried about the age with him. Like he just needs to go out and be confident and have a really nice time at the shows. I probably could try and push him up a little bit higher level, but he's going to go out at the bottom and he's going to do a season at the bottom. And I just want him to learn, like, shows are fun. And then from there, like, he's awesome. Like, there's nothing going to stop him, but he's the kind of horse, like, he just needs a partner. And he's really cool, but he's also only brave if his rider's brave. So if you back off them, you're going to have a huge issue. And I'm totally fine with that. It's not a worry to me, but I really want him to go out there and think he's awesome when he's in the ring. So, there's no huge, like, the challenge for him is just going to be going out. It's not going to be what goes on in the ring. So, like, so it's still, for me, like, I think they'll both be competitive at their levels, but, they're young. So we're not doing anything amazing. Like, we're just going to go out there and do our best. And, so, like, we don't have anything huge coming up, but we are training as if we do, because I want to make sure we get in, when we get to that first Premier in October, that I feel good about it. Like, I want to go in confident,
Oh, for sure. I mean, and then when it all is lined up, it'll be just that much stronger. I mean, you're giving them such a great foundation. I mean, and I love that, that, like, your confidence is instilling confidence, like, in Jet and all of your horses. And that's so important. Then they can do anything, I think.
And that's the thing, like, they're all at their own stage. So it's like, Ruby as a 6-year-old was doing more than Jet will be doing in terms of competition as a 6-year-old. But I wouldn't be surprised if they both pop out at advanced level at the same time. Like, even though they're a year apart and he had a slower start, it's not, that doesn't, dictate anything. They catch up when they catch up, they all turn out where they should turn out. So for me, it's just, I really want them to have a good time. And, like, I thought it was going to be a bit of a push to get Ruby up to medium by the season, but, like, she's already done it now. And the things that I need to work on were all rider era. So I'm really feeling good about that. Like, especially because, like, this last season gone, she did novice level. So we've gone up 2 levels. And, like, at novice, even at the end of the season, I still didn't, she's a huge mover, and I still didn't have grips with her trot. So she would look, if I didn't have her in the correct balance, and because she's so big, she would come up looking every now and then a little irregular and a little insecure. And so even at the, like, even in February, end of February, March, I still didn't have that. And so when I, like, my trainer said to me, do medium, which is 2 levels up, I was really worried. Like, I was like, oh, the trot, it's always been a real issue for us. And, like, she's a really bold horse. And so obviously there's a little bit more to do in these tests. But then the judges never once said the quality wasn't there for level 4. So I'm feeling really good that in the last few months she's really come on. She's obviously got a lot stronger. Her quality's a lot better. So now I feel like, okay, well, now we're just refining movements and we're refining test riding. So that's actually a lot easier to do than, like, manufacturing a trot and all of this stuff. So so I mean, it's not, I mean, it's exciting for me, but I don't think it's exciting for other people at the moment. But like,
I think everybody can relate. It's like those little steps and those little victories of, like, oh, I had a clean canter depart, or I got this, or I got that, or, like, we had a beautiful carriage and he was really in self carriage, and, like, oh, like, all the special little small bits and pieces that we all love as riders, like, totally wins. And so
it's just that, it's just putting small steps together every day. I mean, we're not even aiming for 1% improvement, because that's still too much. It's like 0.1% improvement every day. And then some days they'll go backwards, but usually you're going forward, and
Mhm.
that's just it. Like,
Yeah.
it takes a long time to get a horse up through the levels. So
For
we're
sure.
talking years and years. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
like
Yes.
we're not big timers yet, but hopefully one day we might be.
Well, I mean, I think it's really cool to watch, and I mean, I enjoy watching your guys' progress. It's super
Oh,
fun.
thank you.
And so where then can people kind of keep tabs on all the cool things happening with you, to get in touch with you for coaching?
Yeah.
Where can folks go?
Right. So my main social media that I'm active on is at Dreamtime Dressage on both Instagram and Facebook. Facebook I'm probably a little bit more active on, just because like sometimes I'll write a longer post that doesn't fit on Instagram, and so I don't
Fair enough. Yeah.
like, I'm not even going to post on Instagram, which is not the right attitude, but that's what I do.
It
So
is
yeah,
what
so
it
my
is.
main thing is Dreamtime Dressage, and you can get in touch with me there. My website's on there, so all my
Awesome.
contact details are there. If anyone, wants to do coaching, I
Mhm.
do Zoom sessions. Mainly, I'm just on Zoom or phone call,
Mhm.
but local people can come to my place. But most people I coach aren't from around here, like
Right.
locally. So, so that's the great thing about the time that we live in, is I
Mhm.
think the one good thing that's come out of COVID is everyone's got on Zoom.
That's true. We got a little more connected. I mean, it's fun to do the international thing. That's gotten really
Yeah,
easy. All that,
yeah,
and makes it really great. And I know,
yeah,
you've got a lot of really cool insights and other information on your site to help guide people and get their feet wet, and some things for them to start thinking about
yeah.
with their riding, and strategies, and the performance, and the skill sets and growth. So definitely, I encourage everybody listening, go check it out. It's a lot of great stuff.
Thank
And
you.
so I'm sure everybody pulled some really cool little nuggets out of my chat with Ashleigh today. I mean, we covered a whole bunch of stuff, I know for sure, but I mean, really great topic to get into about our courage and our journeys. So wow, wow, wow. So thank you, Ashleigh. This is amazing. This is truly amazing. And I'm so glad you came on and chatted with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's like always, so great to talk about this stuff, and hopefully it gets some people thinking. And no, I just love
Absolutely.
it. I love talking about it.
It shows. It totally shows. And that's so great, just to have the passion and see the passion. So this is awesome. So, hey, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. And I look forward to having you around for our next one coming up in a little while. So stay tuned and have a great ride out there. And you guys make it a great day. Thank you for listening to this entire podcast. If you're the kind of equestrian that likes to help others, then share this with your friends, fellow riders, and barnmates. You know, if you've found value, they will too. So please share on your social media channels. Also, if you've got questions or have a topic you'd like to hear about, I'm here to help. You can email me at customerservice@sterling-essentials.com, and I may even use your idea on a future podcast episode. Also, if you'd like additional empowering content, connect with me on Instagram at Empowered Equestrian Podcast. Finally, I do have a personal request. If you would please leave a review wherever you listen, and a good one, by the way. I'd be really grateful, and through your assistance together, we can help our equestrian community thrive. Thank you, and take care.